Hello, White Sox fans, and welcome to another edition of the FutureSox MLB podcast. How are you all doing this evening? I hope you're doing well. Joining me this evening, as per usual, is Nick Murawski and Danny Miller down on the end over there. How are you gentlemen doing this evening?
Annie, go ahead first, sir.
Wow, thank you. Hanging in there, man. I will say this. If you had asked me this a couple of days ago, and you and I have talked about this in the past, Ian, I may be that type that has a knee-jerk reaction when the White Sox make some moves that if I have not had some time to think about, I might get a little upset about them. But as time has rolled on, I'm feeling you know, at least off the ledge on some of those things, and we'll get deeper into that as the show goes on. But yeah, I'm doing okay, man. Just another day here on the in the old south suburb of Burbank, and waiting for spring patiently. How you doing, man?
These are the dog days of the off season. Like we're close, but hey, the team looks a lot different since the last time we talked. And I think Ian, you even kind of alluded. Obviously there was just some hope there of maybe next time we talk there'll be something going on, but. I want to hear. I can't wait to hear your reaction stuff, Danny, and because I love it, man. We are in a world of like just instant reaction, like over stuff that I don't even think we know what we're talking about sometimes, but we feel like we have to have a reaction, so we do. I'm just letting this stuff wash over me, like just like a waterfall, and we'll see what happens. But we'll still talk about it. All in all, it's a good time to talk socks.
Yeah. Full disclosure, I am starting the show with a heater
Ripping it right
because
off the
even though
bat.
I've
Yeah,
I've
baby.
even though I've had some time to digest a little bit, and I definitely feel better about some of the things that I wasn't exactly feeling great about in the beginning. I still have a little bit of that agita that this White Sox team gives me very so kindly. They're so generous with the agita, but I digress. Let's go ahead and get on with the show.
Well, I would assume that most people that if you're listening to this, you probably know what happened. But Chris Getz
There he is.
strikes again and makes a couple of trades over the weekend. Sends Christian Mena to the Arizona Diamondbacks for Dom Fletcher, an outfielder who is capable of playing any outfield spot. He is a man of smaller stature, coming in at 5'6", but he plays a good brand of baseball, and he is not a punch and Judy hitter. So there's that deal, and then there was also the trade of Gregory Santos to the Mariners for Perlander Baroa and Zach DeLoach, an outfielder. And also in that trade was included a Comp B pick to the White Sox, which at the current moment stands at the 69th pick in the draft. But, if you listen to the Future Sox podcast with James and I on Sunday, the odds that ends up being the 69th pick drop because there are going to be other guys that are going to be signed that are going to possibly end up voiding out and removing picks for other teams, having them surrender their comp picks. So,
Yeah, there's a handful of guys out there that are free agents that have been offered qualifying offers, and that's going to shuffle the deck just slightly for the White Sox there.
yeah, there's still something like 132 free agents or something along those lines. And we are, and, it's part of the title of tonight's show. We are 1 week away from pitchers and catchers reporting. So we are 1 week out from Major League Baseball players showing up to their respective teams, and there are still 130 guys without jobs, not knowing where they're going. And I don't know if you guys happen to catch the AJ Przynski talking about how unhappy he is that some of these guys still don't know where they're going to be, don't know where they're going to live. Um, did you either you guys happen to catch that?
I didn't catch it, but I could see how he would go on that type of rant. I mean, it makes sense. It's just a wild world, and it's got to be frustrating, which is why I always thought players would try to sign earlier. Like, even if it wasn't like the best deal that they possibly could get, just for peace of mind for themselves, their family, just their kids, everything that needs to get in order before the season, they'd say, you know what? Look, I'm looking at what the future could be, and if this is what it's going to be, I might as well just figure it out now so I can get my ducks in a row. So it is strange.
Yeah, I have a couple thoughts about where we sit right now, 1 week away from pitchers and catchers reporting. But along those lines, you know, I don't really see it affecting the White Sox so much because honestly, I don't really see them making a whole lot more moves on
Uh,
any of that 132, unless I don't know, Chris gets finds another bullpen pitcher he wants to throw 1.5 million at, because that's where the White Sox seem to be spending all their money again this year, even if it is in very small increments, it's still
Spending
there.
in the
And it's
tens and tens of millions.
right. But
Ugh.
the thing is what used to be the hot stove has been a low simmer for a few years now. These I don't know if it's the giant, just ultra ridiculous free agent signings that we've been seeing the last couple of years. Shohei Otani this season was just I mean, that was the blockbuster of all blockbusters at this point in the history of baseball, right? But I don't know if that's the case, but hot stove season used to be exciting. It used to be fun. There was a lot of talk and a lot of speculation about who was going to go where, who was going to get how much money, and things kind of rolled. And you know,
Well, Danny,
lately,
it wasn't. Did you think it was a lively class though? I mean, I didn't think there were a
no,
ton of
and
monsters in this free agency.
yeah, it's not the best year, obviously for sure. And I think we probably get into that a little bit more too. I think that's why the White Sox, everybody wants to say, oh well, our owner doesn't want to spend, and we've got a brand new GM, and
He does not.
you know, and he's only got he's handcuffed and or he doesn't know what he's doing. But to be completely honest with you, this wasn't the year I wanted to see them really go out and spend anyway. If you're gonna do it, the next two free agent classes are exponentially better than this one is kind of cut out to be. But I just wanted some sort of excitement outside of the Shohei thing, right? Cody Bellinger still sitting out there looking for a home. We've got
Snell, Montgomery.
yeah, right. Now Jordan Montgomery, I kind of understand a little bit because outside of last season, numbers haven't been exactly fantastic, right? But yeah, when you got Blake Snell was a two-time Cy Young Award winner, albeit the years in between his Cy Youngs were not great. You still kind of thought, at least I did, that maybe he would be a hot commodity and there'd be a lot of smoke around him. Uh, but really, all the smoke is just kind of he's still on the board, and yeah. So it's just kind of crazy, but again, I don't think any of it really plays into the White Sox hands at all. And I guess that brings me to the second thought that I had about all of this being that we're a week away. I just wanted to point out one thing is here we are, a second year of Pedro Grifal's uh, tenure as the White Sox skipper, and first year into Chris Getz's tenure as a GM and Bannister and all the new guys. And the one thing I would say the White Sox might have going for them into the spring training and into the season this year is no WBC like we saw last year. Everybody gets to report together and play together in spring training, and we're not trying to piecemeal uh minor league games
Well,
and
that was a big issue, Danny. Do you remember that? Oh my goodness, we didn't have the veterans there. Did you remember those articles? We were missing the veteran presence of guys in Camelback Ranch, and that's why the Sox just couldn't get off. They couldn't get everything together, and we got off to the sluggish. So we need those guys. Those leaders weren't there because of the WBC. Oh my goodness.
They were not allowed to establish the culture. Therefore, starting the season in a rut and just causing all sorts of issues.
I was waiting for that C word to come out, man. I put that one on a T for you guys, so
Well, I
thank
mean,
you for obliging me.
it would appear that that does seem to be a big focus for Chris Getz this offseason, is trying to change the mentality of the club. And I think that, at least with the Dom Fletcher pick, that at least you could say that for that particular acquisition. Also, Kevin Pillar and Brett Phillips. I mean, generally, regarded as team players and guys that do little things for the club that has been sorely lacking from the White Sox. And
Well, and they're all MLB outfielders.
that is true.
They're all right fielders. They're all right fielders. They're not first basemen trying to play right field.
Yeah, I had this conversation.
But are they overwhelming? Like, oh wow, they're not going to blow you away. It's depth. That to go to your point, Danny. I think what you maybe were alluding to. Well, the Sox could go out and just figure that out. You could figure right field out if you wanted. You could get Bellinger. You could stop with all this, and we've been talking about this for years. Stop with all these little, like, well, we're going to platoon. Look at the depth that we have now. It's like, well, how about get some starting right fielders in, some premium talent out there in the corner outfield? It just irks me.
Yeah, that's fair. And I had this conversation with James on the Sunday show that a bunch of these guys that have been signed, a bunch of them are going to be non-roster invitees, including Pilar and Brett Phillips, Rafael Ortega, as they signed minor league deals. And eventually they're going to be looking for new jobs because there are still guys in the outfield in Charlotte, in Yoelqui Cespedes and Oscar Colas. I mean, it's possible that maybe Cespedes gets released at some point. I mean, there's a possibility.
Right. Well, there's a Mark Payton that has come back now, and
yeah, he's back from Japan, and and I mentioned him as well. He didn't have a great year in Japan. He had a string of injuries while he was over there. But realistically, having watched a season of Mark Payton, the guy is exactly like a Kevin Pillar or a Brett Phillips, just without the resume of spending a bunch of time up in the majors. Brett Phillips, yes, he was in the majors, and yes, he did have one large hit in a pressure-packed situation, but realistically, the guy has never hit in the major leagues. So I can't say that he's really got a stellar resume, but he does have time in the bigs, and he has proved that his defense is very good. But with all these recent acquisitions, and then you got Zach DeLoach coming over in that deal with the Mariners, I have the feeling that you're going to be looking at an outfield of Yoelqui, Oscar Colas, and Zach DeLoach as your starting, your opening day Charlotte outfield. And Pilar's probably going to end up with the big league club. And, if you look at his splits and then you look at Dom Fletcher's splits, they pretty much fit perfect to where one's deficiency is the other's strength. And both of them can play a very competent outfield. So I know that it's not the ideal situation having a platoon in right field, but after what we've seen, if I don't know if you've taken a look, but if you look at the depth chart on the White Sox home site, the right field number 1 in the depth chart is Gavin Sheets. So
Yeah, that's got to change. Hopefully that has changed.
there is no way that's not going to change.
Yeah, no, I get all that. Those are great points. It does seem like they've been going after a type. Pedro Grifol has, I'm sure, opened up to Getz and said, I couldn't say this to Rick. I was just trying to figure things out. I didn't want to rock the boat. Someone finally gave me an opportunity to be an MLB manager. But I can say this to you, Getz, because we have a relationship. There is a lot of stuff that needs to change. Sure, culture, this, that, and the other, but the type of players that I was gifted. This is what I need. This is what I want. And you see these moves that have been happening, and nothing has wowed me at all. I think that, yeah, of course, the team's going to be better defensively. The bar was low, but. Yeah, Fletcher excites me. What are you going to do with an arm like Santos on a team like the White Sox? I was kind of surprised he wasn't moved at the trade deadline last year. He's worthless to the Sox in what they're doing compared to what a team that actually is going to do something, what they could use him for. So that was the smart move. You guys can speak, and I'm really curious to hear more of your thoughts on Mania, because I heard stuff from Dan Victor last year and a bunch of other people that covered prospect arms, and you guys were in the weeds on a guy like that. It seemed like there were a lot of folks high on that arm. They were interested in seeing what we were going to have, but all three of us talked about how the Sox hold on to guys a little too long. So I'm really curious to get your viewpoints on that deal.
You want me to take this, Danny? I assume.
I have my thoughts, but you can go ahead. I'll jump in when you're done.
Well, I'll start with the last thing you said about the White Sox keeping players for too long. That was not a problem with him because he was signed very young, and he was traded very young. I kind of feel that the trade was kind of one of those things where the White Sox didn't want to give up Mena, but they wanted Fletcher, and the Diamondbacks wanted Mena. So that's what the deal ended up being. And, the fact that he's younger but closer to the major leagues, at least by his assignment, would benefit the D-backs in the short term and the long term because they'll have a lot of control as well. The concerns with him that I don't know is if they're necessarily something that can be remedied 100% because his fastball is not an elite fastball. His fastball is
92, 93.
Yeah, in 2000 he would have been middle of the road. But now he's no longer, his velocity with the way things have gone, his velocity is not there. So
and it hasn't progressed in some time. It's been sitting in that same range of MPH for a few years now.
Yeah, that's
a
problem.
Like 3 years. Yeah. And like the issue is that the command has also been an issue here and there. Again, this has been one of those things where we talk about this a lot when it comes to prospects is you don't know what the particular players are working on in particular, and that might be why a particular pitch mix is being called is because they are particularly working on their changeup, or they're particularly working on their command up in the zone, or whatever it might be. You don't know exactly what that is, and that may have caused an issue there. And also, he pitched in Double-A most of the year last year, where the first half of the season they had the super tack ball, which was nobody's favorite thing ever, and most of these people never want to see that again. So that's probably also an issue when it comes to his first half numbers, and then in the second half he has to readjust to throwing a normal baseball again. So the the whole thing of getting comfortable is kind of thrown out the window there. So that causes an issue as well. His command, I feel, was a little better in 2022 than it was in 2023, but that could possibly be why. And also, um, something that I'm trying to remember who was. I was watching something where they were. It was top 100s, the baseball MLB Pipeline top 100. And they were talking about the fact that when you're looking at walk rates for AAA in particular, that they saw a boom in walk rates last year. And when you're looking at hitters, you don't want to overvalue the walk. And for pitchers, you don't want to panic too much about walk rates in AAA either, because this was the first year where most of these guys are using the ABS automatic balls and strikes system. And uh, not that it's a bad system, it's just the way that it gets called is often, it seems kind of a bit off. It's not how we're used to seeing balls and strikes called. So that led to a rise in walk rates. So when he got to AAA in Charlotte in particular, it's a thing, you know. So that's my thoughts. What do you think, Danny?
You pretty much nailed it, actually. The few things that I wanted to point out was one, you hit right on the head with the fastball. And that's not something it's been a major secret. I think maybe a lot of fans hadn't heard it, but anybody who follows, the way we do with the minor leagues, and not just you and I, and I know Nick doesn't spend a ton of time with the minor league guys, but we've got guys like Dan Victor and James Fox here and Elijah, and everybody pays a lot of attention. And I think probably most of the folks here at Future Sox would tell you that the fastball was something of a concern for White Sox brass. And unfortunate as it may be, and this is the reason why I had that going, because I was a fan of Christian Mena. He's got some pretty filthy stuff, and when he's doing his thing and he's getting those pitchers pitches, I mean, he almost looks unhittable. But when you've got 93 miles an hour, you're topping off. You're just not going to make it in the majors unless you're Greg Maddux, which I don't know if we'll ever see a Greg Maddux type pitcher again in the state of the game now, because guys are just catching up to this stuff. You know the new analytics, the new technology, all of these things that hitters are working with these days. As a pitcher, has got to be absolutely frustrating, because you're not going to get the same kind of swing and miss that you. I mean, unless you're pitching against the 2023 White Sox, but you're not going to get the same type of swing and miss that guys were getting in the mid to late 90s. You know what I mean? So you got to have at least a fastball that's hitting mid 90s to have any sort of chance whatsoever, right? So I think that was kind of a big deal. And part of the reason why I was able to, kind of let go on that. The other thing is uh, the player that they get in return in Fletcher is a position of need. And albeit he's a bit on the smaller side, he does have some pop in his bat. He runs like his legs are longer than he's 5'6". Uh he's I'm not saying he's some kind of speedster. He's not
Yeah,
Billy
no, he's
Hamilton
not.
out there
Yeah.
by any means. But he has played some center field in his time. Uh so he can cover some ground, and he's defensively really solid. The only thing about him playing right field is I've heard there's some knocks on the arm. I'm not real sure how that goes. I mean, you know, I haven't really had an opportunity to see him play a lot. I caught him playing a little bit last season, but he just, when you look at the trade overall as a whole and what it does for Arizona and what it does for the White Sox, you kind of got to go. Excuse me. It made sense for both sides, for all the
Does it
reasons that you said.
happen? Does it happen without Barfield? If Barfield's not in the organization, does he? Do you really make that deal, or is it the situation where, like, this is getting into the weeds of this, but this is kind of what I've been thinking over the last couple of days is were the Sox really trying to get rid of Mania, or was it a bigger situation of Barfield's in the system? Barfield likes Fletcher and is saying to Gatz, Grifol, I got a guy for you. If we could get this done, let's try to get him over. And that's how all of that went down.
Yeah, I can't imagine that they're trying to get rid of Mena. Um, but I think that there is definitely some concern, and there was from my point of view that that as he progresses through the system and he starts climbing levels, his curveball is still fantastic, but guys sitting on the fastball and catching up to that fastball as he climbs the ladder on it, it's going to be a much bigger issue every level he goes up. So I think that's a thing of particular concern. But
Yeah, maybe Arizona unlocks some more power, brings his his fastball up a few ticks. I don't really know. And I've seen that brought up in a few different chats, like, oh my God, if that happens, the White Sox going to look like buffoons. But honestly, you can't try to go down that road. We as White Sox fans tend to do that a lot, and then we'll look back at something like a certain uh, Tatis Jr. player that everybody goes, "Oh my God, I can't believe we got rid of that guy. He's a penalty. He's a superstar, and who can't stay healthy, by the way, and gets popped for all kinds of crap." But uh, you know, it, we can't look at Christian Mena that way because right now in the moment he just doesn't fit a spot with this White Sox team. And as close as people are trying to say that he really wasn't close. I don't think you were going to see him pitching for the White Sox at the major league level this year.
not this
You know
year.
what I mean?
No.
He's got a handful of time at Double A, and like Ian says, once you start moving him up that ladder, uh, chances are he's going to get dinged up quite a bit.
Yeah.
I think what the initial optics are with moving an arm is you start looking at, well, Cease might be gone. We don't know what we have in Kopech. Crochet wants to start. Is he going to have to close now? And when you see a young arm being moved, I think that's where some fans, and me included, I was just like, oh, it must be really high on this Fletcher because we're going to need a rotation soon. So that's just where, if I don't know as much, which I don't, I'm like towing the water. You guys have been my source, and James Fox and Victor, but wow, we're getting rid of a young arm. It must be because we really are excited about this guy.
Yeah. I mean, I've been personally. I've been watching him since he played at Kane County, and it's always been a fun watch. He's full of energy, and the guy does play hard, and he plays the right way.
Grinder ball.
Yeah. I mean,
The rules.
yeah. I mean, like the only thing that is not part of the grinder ball thing is that he's got gap to gap power, even though he's a shorter guy. He can still hit a home run. He can still rock one off the
Hopefully
power
he still
alleys.
does.
Yeah, let's be very clear. This is not Nick Madrigal 2.0.
Huh.
No.
The comparisons in size stop right pretty much about there. They're very different players. Nick Madrigal wanted to be a gamer, which is probably why he ran himself into some situations. He wanted to live up to the hype around his name. Fletcher is a gamer, and I think he probably plays a little bit of a chip on his shoulder because of his size, and he does it well. He handles it well. So, but you brought up Barfield in that conversation, Nick, and I would definitely say that. I mean, in my opinion, when we talk about trading Santos, I would say there's definitely a
Oh
Barfield
yeah,
connection in that trade.
yeah.
He's traded him a couple of times.
I
Oh,
talked a little
Bannister.
bit.
Yeah.
I'm sorry,
Uh,
Bannister, not Barfield.
Yeah.
well, it's anybody that you bring into the organization. I had a little bit of this conversation with Pat on Good Guys of we We talk about, why are the Sox trying to become the Royals? And it's really, Getz is just trying to surround himself with people that he's comfortable with. And it just so happens that he spent a lot of time working through the Royals system, Griffol's through the from the Royals, which I think Getz probably had a hand in that. And here we go. The thing about Barfield that I like is he's coming from a winning organization, so we're getting when we can get people in from different organizations that are doing things the right way, we get different perspectives on how to do things, how players have been developed and where other guys are throughout the league. When you're just tapping into the Royals, I get why, but you're kind of closing yourself off from all this other you know wealth or depth. So that's that. I like that. That makes sense. That I'm excited about Barfield coming over even more because he can tap into a team like the Arizona Diamondbacks.
Yeah, obviously the Barfield has had the relationship with Hazen in Arizona. Um, between Bannister and Yanish and Barfield, yeah, I also get fired up when the White Sox hire another guy from the Royals, and I also kind of get a little bit of you know like when Sam Mondry Cohen gets yoinked, you
Yeah,
know.
that was not
Um,
cool.
but as I said in our chat, an underutilized asset that feels that he's wasting his time is more likely to go somewhere else where he feels he's going to be more utilized. And but back to the other guys, having just a few guys that have a different viewpoint on things and different values of who the White Sox have in their system, and uh, having watched other players from other systems and having a different viewpoint on them as well, has to be a good influence on Getz and help him with his job to make better decisions.
Yeah.
So
Oh yeah.
Absolutely.
that's all that we can hope for. And so far, I have to say that the returns on these deals, you can say, yeah, Gregory Santos, was looking like a stud last year, but I mean, we've got Jordan Leisure, who had a 50% strikeout rate in the Arizona Fall League after he learned how to, he learned a new pitch. He started throwing a curveball, and
Yeah.
we've got Alex Spees, who we claimed from the Rangers in early October, that throws
I have a
102,
question about him to
103.
talk to you about in a minute, but
Roger, and then they pick up Perlander Baroa, who's another one of those guys that people have had their eye on for a little while as one of those guys that they had tabbed for a closer role. Now you have control concerns with Spees and Baroa, but I mean both of those guys have really nasty stuff, and Spees is 6'3", and Baroa is generating 100 to 102 miles an hour at 5'11".
yeah,
So
babies.
yeah, I mean
Billy Wagner.
dude's got an arm on him. So I mean there are other options out there as far as the closer role goes, and that's one thing I wanted to get to here. Is the pitching staff more than anything else, because that's who's reporting the day that we do our next stream here. So I kind of wanted to get your guys' ideas on that. What were you going to say about Spees, Danny?
Now, my only question about Speeds, and I know you and James, I watched the show live on Sunday night, and you guys had a lot of great things to say about him. You pulled up some really great video footage of his debut, I believe it was.
Yep.
Uh, he went 1.2 scoreless or whatever, first, like the fifth time or fifth best opening performance of a Mariners pitcher. But my thing about Spees is that I felt like I noticed something in the video, and I don't know if you have that available. If you don't, that's fine. But if you're listening to this show, I would implore you to go back and watch Sunday night's show with Ian and James, and tell me if I'm wrong here, but I feel like he tips his pitches. It almost jumped out at me, and I could possibly be wrong, but it seemed like he pulls his hand out of his glove right before his delivery, pulls it out, puts it back in, which, at the lower levels could be called for a balk. Trust me, I know. I used to do it a lot. But I noticed that on his fastball and his breaking balls, the depth at which his hand comes out of his glove was different. And I'm hoping that maybe I'm wrong, but it almost seemed like so obvious that how could I be right? Because I feel like somebody in Major League Baseball would have had to pick up on that rather quickly. And
It's
I was just
happened
kind of
with other
curious if
pitchers, though. I mean, Danny, like last year, wasn't there a Kopech situation? And we've had Giolito, and it's like, how are we not looking at that? How is our staff? How are coaches not able to pick that up? So maybe you might be onto something, Danny. You might have cracked that.
I don't know. I wasn't anybody, but I pitched, and I just have a tendency to kind of watch those kinds of things. Uh,
Absolutely. I pitched too, and you were right with that. I mean, gosh, subtleties. And if you've got smart guys on the bench and you've got smart coaches and you're up against just some smart hitters, I mean, they'll pick up any little thing. They're just trained to do that. So you'll get figured out quick.
Yeah,
yeah,
well,
no
I mean,
disagreement here.
I'm just saying he came out of the bullpen in that game, faced Wander Franco as his first batter, struck him out, then struck out Yandy Diaz, and then struck out Randy Arozarena, and then got like a 3-pitch pop out in the final at bat of the that inning right there. So, I mean, guy's got really nasty stuff, and they have a hard time picking up on his slider. So there is that. Let me go ahead and go ahead and bring this up.
Yeah, sorry to throw you a curveball on
Oh
this
no,
one.
all good, man.
It was just happened to be something picked up, and I didn't want to. Actually, kind of wanted to save the question for tonight, to be honest with you, instead of hitting you live at the moment. But hello. Yeah, just watch the way his. Oh, see, he didn't pull his hand out of his glove at all on that one.
Or that one.
You know who used to do that? I mean, Hendricks used to do that. If
Yes,
you
he
ever
did. Yeah,
noticed.
and that was like one of his big issues where he ended up giving up home runs a lot was that
Yes.
that tap on the
Yep. Yep.
fastball every
Yep.
time he would throw it. Yeah, no, for sure.
There you
it
go.
was.
Yep.
Was the bell
There
tower
was,
there.
again.
man. And I started kind of noticing that. Maybe
Yeah,
it's
and
like
once you do it
when
as
he
a
goes
pitcher and
in.
you feel like you got a rhythm,
That's
you
his
tend to
cutter.
just like.
Yeah, the times that you saw him do that, that was on his cutter, which is actually a new pitch in his arsenal. He added it in the offseason in between 22 and 23. So, I mean, that might have something to do with it, but I think that's kind of one of those things that Bannister will definitely pick up on. That was nasty K of a Arozarena there, just throwing his bat down the third baseline.
I mean, that's what you hope. It sounds so obvious, but that's what you hope spring training is all about. Clearing some things up. Bannister, Katz, they're getting eyes on a lot of these guys, probably for the first time live. And there's a lot of new faces. I mean, you are going to need names on the back of jerseys just to kind of figure out who's who. That's what you hope, is just cleaning things up.
So up here on the screen, I have what is listed as the depth chart from the White Sox on MLB.com's team page. And obviously, there is going to be some, guys that aren't going to be in the starting rotation here. But, we'll see what happens with Cease. Obviously, I don't want to even go down that road at all because it seems like every time I talk about the White Sox, I have to talk about Dylan Cease in the trade market. So let's just skip over that for this evening. But we got the top 7 here are Cease, Kopech, Toussaint, Michael Soroka, Eric Fetty, Chris Flexen, and Jared Schuster. So that's 7, and as we've all talked about before, the average amount of starters that a team needs to make it through an entire season is generally about 11. Now, I don't know, obviously, barring injuries and whatever, we just know that there's no way that we're going to get through an entire season with, you know, just the starting 5. So you're going to need additional pitchers. I'm curious to see what happens with Kopech this year, and this is, I've heard a lot of people say, and I can't help but agree that this is the year right here for him. If he doesn't stand up and take the job and perform at a fairly high level as a starter this year, I don't see anybody giving him a shot in the starting rotation ever again.
Anywhere.
Yeah, I really think they're looking at him as a starter. And honestly, personally, as just as a fan, I hope they are. I think that's where his value is a starter. I'm I'm worried about him out of the bullpen. I mean, I haven't seen much control. I think that's the big bugaboo. But if he can excel as a starter, then he would have to get his control in order anyway. With the way this rotation is right now, I want him. If everything is true that we've been hearing, and boy, I wish that was the case with everything that we hear every offseason. But everything we're hearing about, how he's been progressing this offseason, what kind of offseason he's having, time will tell in Arizona. He might absolutely pitch himself out of a starting rotation position, but I'm rooting for him. I really am. I mean, I want him to hit. This has been a long journey, man, and I just want to see what a healthy, competent, confident, effective Michael Kopech can do. Can he do it? That's the question. But I would love to see it in the rotation.
Yeah, I have to agree. To be honest with you, if you can't, excuse me, if you can't do it in the rotation, and we've seen those starts where Michael Kopech comes out and he doesn't have it right away quite often, and you see it immediately. Is that a guy you want coming in the fourth, fifth, sixth? Well, a lot of people seem to think that if he goes to the bullpen, he's going to be high leverage, setup slash closer type guy. Is that a guy you want coming in with a 1 or 2 run lead, and he immediately doesn't have it, and now he's going to face 3 batters?
Yeah, exactly, Danny. Exactly. I mean, you're going to have to bring him in a clean inning, because there's the threat of walking and all of this other stuff. There's too many liabilities, and to play that game, that's a different mental piece too. And don't tell me, well, like pitching is pitching. No, it's not. It is absolutely not. And there are so many craft spots either in the bullpen or what have you. But when you're a starter and you have that mentality, it's a little bit different. You could get away with maybe a rough first or something, and then you could get your legs, and then you could even out a 4-5, maybe into the 6th. But if you don't have it as a reliever, you do not have time to figure it out, and to your point, you got to face 3 batters then.
Yeah, and that's the thing. Honestly, if this was a few years ago where we weren't dealing with that new 3 batter rule, and it's I guess it's not all that new anymore, but back in the day where there was your specialty pitchers, your left-handed bullpen arm that was going to come in for the matchup for 1 batter and then sit down. You had guys that maybe Tony La Russa sitting at the bench and he's looking at what this guy does at 3-1. Have you seen his numbers? Have you seen what he does on a on a 1-2 count.
Ugh.
Have you seen what he does on a 1-2 count?
You're talking about our current consultant, Danny.
True.
Walking guys with 2 strikes. I'll never get over that. But anywho, yeah, if we were back in that era, I'd say sure, give him a shot. Because if he's gonna have one of those games where he just doesn't have it right off the bat, you yank him. But now you're talking about putting him in a high leverage situation. You got 3 guys that he's got to face, and you can change the outcome of a game rather quickly.
Yeah, the one thing that I notice about this top 7 guys here in particular is that one thing that we've been dealing with for the last, I don't know, 5-6 years is the whole just stay healthy and everything will be fine strategy that they've been using on position players. But they've had a fairly decent and competent starting rotation for that time, barring, singular seasons of the starting 5, whether it be Giolito having an off year or Lance Lynn having an off year. But for the most part, they've had a fairly competent rotation for a few years now. And this year, Kopech's been hurt a bunch. Tuki Toussaint, last year you got a fairly decent, competent depth piece out of him. Can he continue that? I don't know. But then you've got Soroka, who is coming back from an injury, and I saw him last year in the minors, and he looked pretty good, and he looked like he was on his way back. And with the double Achilles nonsense, that's obviously we've seen that whole thing play out before. And then Eric Fetty, injuries, and then goes over to the KBO, turns into the Cy Young of the KBO and MVP. And then you've got Chris Flexen, who has had some injuries, but also he started changing his pitch mix, and that's one thing that they've been talking about redoing with him to try and get him back to where he was a few years ago, where he looked like a competent, back into the rotation guy. And then you've got Jared Schuster, who was once the number 1 rated prospect for the Braves, but his mechanics have shifted, so he lost some of his sneakery in his delivery. And that was one thing that Katz and Bannister are definitely going to address and already have apparently started addressing. But you've got a lot of question marks here, and I have gone on record here on all of these Future Sox podcasts saying that I personally am not down on the pitching. I think that the pitching staff is going to be better than a lot of people are giving it credit for. And I've seen some national guys kind of coming along the same lines here in the last couple of days. But even if I'm confident that that's the way things are, it doesn't mean that, one of these guys' arms isn't going to fall off, or somebody's going to, Kopech's going to have another tear in his other knee. I mean, I don't know, but there could be all sorts of little things that could reach up and bite you, and that's where the uncertainty comes in for me, at least. I think other people are down on pitching a lot more than I am, even if everybody were to stay healthy. But what do you think about that, Nick?
I think it is, for me, it's the lack of a track record. Like, I don't have some of these guys, I like that they've figured some things out, and, they've developed, a different type of arsenal. But do you what's your body of work? Have you been able to do this at the major league level for 162? And I completely agree with your point. Like, this is going to mix and match. Like, we're going to need other arms to fill in. This starting rotation might very well be a 9 to 11 type of, when you look at it at the end of the day, of how many people took the hill for the White Sox to start a game. And it's just, how days off factor in and little things here and there. And you could maybe skip a start to get a breather, because some of these guys don't maybe have that stamina. And so maybe the first couple months, it does look like things are gelling. And again, it depends on what kind of spring, these guys have and who emerges and all this. But where I don't want to say I'm down on it. I'm highly skeptical because of the lack of a proven body of work.
Yeah. That I pretty well said. The one thing I'll say about this, especially the handful of guys you got up there now. Now, we can talk about next man up if some of these guys start going down, like you're saying, or just need a rest. And honestly, that list can get a little wonky. But looking at the handful, the top 7 that we have here, uh, I would say, honestly, it would not shock me if guys like Soroka, Fetty, and Flexen are possibly your top 3 pitchers. We all want Dylan Cease to be successful, right? But consistency, like you say, is one of those things that has eluded most of this White Sox team. I do want to see Michael Kopech make that next step. I really, really hope that he is the guy that when he was drafted and, just shoved down our throat as being, the best thing since sliced bread. I really hope that guy shows up. But going down the list, it's a bunch that is at least thought to be very capable of being quality pitchers. And some of these guys down towards the bottom of that list could very well be guys. They could very well be solid starting rotation pieces. And I know that there have been projections out there that say this year's, projected starting rotation actually is looking like it could be slightly better than last year's. Not that that's a huge feat, but for us White Sox fans who suffered through some just awful ball, we can talk about the offense all we want, but the pitching was atrocious at times too. So,
With a rotation like this and a potential rotation, who even knows? I think there is excitement about the potential, right? The possibility.
right.
But with an improved defense, and I think everybody's talking about, well, this defense is at least going to be better, is at least going to be competent. That's got to help. For some of these unproven pitchers, that's what you want. You got to have a solid defense behind you where they know that, they could go at a guy. They don't necessarily have to nip around and do it on their own. They can, maybe pitch the contact because they've got, a defense behind them that can take care of their own business.
Yeah, confidence is a hell of a drug when you're on a pitcher's mound.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Let's hope. So let's move along to the rest of the guys here on this list. And this is the
Wow.
this is the depth chart, not the 40-man roster here. But obviously Lane Ramsey just was DFA'd, so he probably, assuming that things don't change here, he's not there. But you know, I'm just saying. We got Jesse Schultens, who's going to be
Jesse Schultens.
yeah, that's going to be one of your guys that's going to possibly do some pickup starts. But pretty grim. You got Shane Drowan, who's the Rule 5 pick from the Red Sox. Command issues. A lot of people are thinking that he's probably going to end up in the bullpen if the White Sox do indeed decide to continue to have him on. But we'll see. That's one of those things where that's the Rule 5 thing is always tricky. I mean, you saw it with Avila, pitching pretty stinking well, and yet the White Sox decided to keep Jose Ruiz. So I can't really say. That obviously different GM. So, could be that if Shane Drowan is lights out and, somebody like a Tim Hill is not pitching well, it could be that, unlike last year where they let Avila go, that they do decide to bite the bullet and just eat the money because ultimately, even though Jose Ruiz was only making $1 million, I have to assume that they didn't want to lose that money, or they had faith in him because of how he pitched in the WBC, which we saw that was all smoke and mirrors as well, just because he was pitching against guys from the Netherlands or something like that. Yeah, but I mean,
bagging groceries,
yeah,
on their off
electricians
days.
and plumbers. The same argument that everybody makes about Babe Ruth hitting his home runs. Oh, that was against plumbers. Yeah, but I think like pretty much the only guy on this list that I look at and see potential as something that at least something that we haven't really seen a whole lot of is Davy Garcia. Um, and the thing is that he is one of those guys that you have to minimize his exposure. You can't leave him out there too long. He's not going to be a long term, like a mop up guy, that's going to pick up 2-3 innings generally. I don't know. Just, with all the injuries of this particular group of players, I don't know. Not a whole lot of confidence here, and I kind of struggled to see how this is what they filled the depth chart with, knowing that Jordan Leisure is, knocking on the door, and somehow Sammy Peralta and makes it there in front of him. I'm just saying. So, your guys' thoughts on these guys?
I like this type, this time of spring training when guys emerge, guys step up, guys win battles, and it happens in these like setup roles, these bullpen roles. So when people say, "Hey, spring training," like, what are you paying attention to spring training? You're paying attention for these types of things. Which arms are going to emerge, and they're putting guys in different situations, and they're pitching for their lives, really. When they come into a game, in a Cactus League game, believe it or not, especially this group, it's nobody's really separating themselves from the pack. So if you can really wow the coaches and get out of some jams, show them some stuff, make some heads turn, you've won yourself a job. I mean, that's what it is, with this group of pitchers. So I like this type of stuff. Names are going to emerge, and you're going to be like, where did this guy come from? It happens every single year.
Yep.
And they got the hottest arm to start the year. So it's not much to look at, but I have a feeling, we're gonna be confident with a couple guys, hopefully a few guys, for sure, as we start getting through some spring training games.
Yeah. So looking at the 40-man here, we've got Perlander Baroa, who just came over from the Mariners. Yosimar Kuzin, which some people have mentioned that it's possible that part of his contract was that he would spend a year in the minors and then he would have a shot at making the big league club, and if not, he would be released. Kind of that Johnny Cueto, type of release, catch and release, I guess you could say. We'll see where he ends up. He looked to have, an inning in the Arizona Fall League where he looked fairly comfortable. Didn't really give up a whole lot of hard contact out there, and that was kind of a theme for him all year last year, where he didn't give up a ton of really hard contact, but he would give up runs. So he could be like the poster boy for the White Sox improved defense, that he can pitch to contact and get some ground balls and still manage to get out of innings without surrendering too much. You got Jake Eder on here, which, we'll see a little bit of him as well. How much, I don't know. I think that, with the command issues that he showed towards the end of last year, that there were some concerns, and then he went to the Arizona Fall League and he did look better. He had moments of dominance, but also coming after Tommy John, we'll see how that whole thing works out. Scroll down here. Matt Foster, currently, last time I saw him, he was throwing about 65, coming back from TJ, so we don't have to really think about him too much. Davis Martin also coming back from TJ. Um, and Alex Spees is on the list, which he's one of the other guys that we talked about earlier, is possibly having a potential closer type arsenal, and we'll see where that ends up there.
Yeah, let me ask you this, Ian, real quick. Do you see Nick Nastrini as a guy who can maybe, I know that he's, been a starter and projected as a starter and is, the White Sox are really hoping that he can make his way up to the MLB club as a starter. Can you see them taking a Chris Sale type route with him and maybe giving him some bullpen outings with the MLB club, maybe somewhere down the road this year?
I mean, anything's possible, but I kind of think that the whole reason for doing that was Sale at the time was they needed bullpen pitchers, and I don't feel like this team really warrants that kind of rush job on Nick Nastrini, who they have high hopes of him being a piece in the rotation for the foreseeable future. But then again, we've they filled their coffers with pitching last year at the trade deadline. So who knows? I mean, that's kind of one of those things is kind of just up in the air. We'll see. Yeah. I hope. How about this? I hope not. I'd like to see.
Right.
I'd like to see him
That's pretty
start.
much how I felt too. The
Yeah.
reason I bring that up is I kind of saw that kicked around a little bit, and I went, "Wait a minute, let's not push." I don't know. If White Sox fans can get a little,
Not the time to rush anybody, man. This is not the year to rush anybody, especially an arm.
yeah, impatience is not going to do us any good whatsoever. You're a ball club that's really not expected to compete, and I'm sure we'll get into that just a little bit because I'm sure everybody's seen the Pacoda uh, stuff that came out today. But you know,
Was it good,
it,
Danny? Did they like us?
oh, absolutely. If zero, if you're going on a scale of 0 to
Is that bad? Is
yeah,
that worrisome? Oh boy. Mm.
yeah. Anywho, yeah,
Wah,
there's
wah.
really no reason to rush anyone.
Yeah.
And I know you guys know how I feel about having Tim Hill taking a 40-man roster spot. Why we needed to sign a 35-year-old pitcher in December to pitch out of our bullpen when it's the one of a few places where the White Sox do well in the development department. Yeah, I don't know. We get to watch him, come out with his near 6 ERA last year and 1.6 plus WHIP. And Romy Gonzalez gets to go somewhere else. I'm sure,
He's 6'4" though, Danny. So at least he adds some height to the pitching in that
you
war.
know, can he play first base?
Oh,
He might, you
you
know what?
know.
I think that could be an open audition.
um, just because they are the pairing for the pitchers to report, the 40 man of catchers here, not exactly inspiring. Corey Lee, who looked lost at the end of the year last year, defensively he looked okay. He didn't as being touted as a glove first catcher. Not really all that inspiring. Martin Maldonado, also a glove first catcher, can't swing the bat. And then you've got Max Stassi, who is a kind of a question mark. He's had some decent years behind the plate, or with the bat, but he took all of last year off with an injury and then some medical issues with his family. So we don't really know what we're going to get. Hopefully it's a rejuvenated Max Stassi and he comes back ready to bludgeon the baseball all over the place. But, he's probably going to be in a backup role to Martin Maldonado is my guess. Thoughts?
I mean, a list only a mother could love. It's just, I mean, we're all going to be just saying to ourselves, who? Who's that? When did they get him? You're going to hear from Sox fans at the beginning of the year of who are these guys? Where did these guys come from? I mean, it's clear that offense has not been a priority. It's defense for sure this offseason. And whatever, at least do one thing right. When you cannot when you can't figure offense out and you have horrible defense, then you have no use for you. So if you're not going to be able to hit, at least play some stellar defense. Yeah, Corey Lee did look lost at the plate. That is for sure.
He kind of looked
You
lost
know,
behind the dish too.
yeah. I mean, I wasn't at the beginning. I don't know. I felt like okay, this guy can handle himself, but he could not figure out what was going on at the major league level pitching wise, and he caught a lot of wrath from Pedro Grifol. And we've heard of guys that, hey, I'm going to work on this, or I'm going to work on that. Like, I just hope there's an improvement. I hope we see a little bit of an improvement, when he has opportunities. But what can you really say about that list? Honestly, what can you say about it? It's just, hopefully there are more than warm bodies behind there. But, and Maldonado has been talked a lot about what he can do for a young staff, though, like how he has been able to help young catchers in Houston or what have you. So can that presence, I don't know what else is in the pipeline necessarily for this year, but boy, I don't have much in terms of expectations.
I'm just
I
want
mean,
to throw
either.
this out here real quick. I saw yesterday I think it might have been Codify. It was somebody posted defensive framing numbers for since 2015, and at the top of that list was Yasmani Grandal in almost every category, and Martin Maldonado was way down the list. I just wanted to throw that out there. Continue, Danny.
No, I was just saying it's the one thing I've been talking off season with the new direction of a defensive White Sox, improving defensively. That group leaves something to be desired, pretty much from top to bottom. And I think you're right. I think it'll probably, at least to start the season, be a battery of Martin Maldonado followed by Max Stassi. I don't know if Corey Lee, unless he figures something out, and he turns it on a little bit, maybe we see him make his way back up. Martin Maldonado's a little long in the tooth. Who knows how much, beating he can take back there. But Edgar Carroll is back there in the wings somewhere.
It's
I don't know how.
way back there. Yeah.
Yeah, and here's my thing. You're probably looking at a list of guys that is going to make a lot of Sox fans that wanted to see Yasmani get launched. They're going to be clamoring for Yasmani
Still
and
looking for a job. He's still looking for a
750
job,
OPS
Danny.
plus because he's walking and hitting, dribbling singles every now and again, and when I say he's walking when he hits those dribbling singles too. So, you know,
Walking slowly.
it's a tough group to look at for sure.
Yeah. Well, I think this is a good as place as any to leave this evening until we see some actual action down. Well, I guess we'll still have next week to talk as well. That we'll talk about some other things that are sleepers, guys that we think that would maybe have an actual shot to make this roster, and try and come up with some actual rosters, like a pitching staff for
There could be some more moves, Ian. I think Jake Diekman just found a new home with the New York Mets. So
yes, he did.
There could be some. You never know what Kritzkatz might pull off in the next few days.
Yeah. I think that pretty much sums up 2/3 of that list in the comment. Not much to look at. When you just glaze over the surface. Watching a bunch of guys in the minor leagues. I see some potential in some of these guys, but we're talking about guys that we're asking to take up a considerable amount of innings, depending on what this starting staff does. So you guys got anything else of import for this week?
No, I think that about covers it, brother. We can sit here and rant all night long, honestly, but we hit what we needed to hit.
I concur. Nick?
Yeah, I'm just gonna, try to race out and get that spring training hat, that new hat, that new look, and just get ready. I mean, I'm excited. I really am excited for spring training. It's the start of baseball. What we have to get excited about is a whole nother thing, but generally, I'm excited for this to get going here.
Yep.
Yeah, pitchers and catchers reporting just means the weather is, going to turn sometime in the near future, which always excites me a little bit. And getting back to the ballpark, as rough as an experience as it may be to watch.
Single game tickets on sale soon, like the 12th or the 15th. I got an email about it. So
get them quick.
ready.
They're going fast.
Yeah, get your calendar out. Look at that schedule.
I'll get those September games for $1.73.
Yeah, get them on the old secondary market. So FutureSox.net, you can find written content from all of the fantastic writers over at FutureSox. You can see us on Twitter at FutureSox. Also, if you are listening to this in stream form, you can find this stream anywhere you find your streams. But you can also find this in video format and audio only on YouTube. You can find this video on our Twitch videos page. My name is Ian Eskridge at Daily White Sox. Next to me is Nick Murawski at Nick_GGTB. And Danny Miller at Danny Miller FS. Feel free to peruse our website. I know that James Fox has got has put up some nice pieces on the trades that just happened over the last week, and Nick's also put out some nice content as well. If you're there and you feel like supporting what we do, feel free to click on the Patreon. We thank you so much for your patronage this evening. Thank you so much for your time. Thanks for coming and watching. Thanks for hopping in. We will catch you guys next